A lot of reading, a lot of research.
And reading, you mean like, are there books in particular, like
Reddit.
philosophies?
I just go on Reddit, honestly.
We're here at the Luckman Club at Soho House, West Hollywood with the lovely and talented PinkPantheress. Let's start with the Grammys and let's go back in time a little bit to recent history, November 7th, when nominations came out.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to know what you were doing that morning.
I was in bed and then I got woken up with the news. The co-producer of the whole project, and then specifically Illegal, sent like an invisible text, like where you can make it invisible, and then he was like, "Did you see?" I was like so scared. I was like, yeah, it was shocking. I was in bed though, I remember.
You know, did the news carry you through the day in a particular way?
It definitely did carry me through the day. I was very, very happy. Obviously, I was like ecstatic, and I was just getting so many messages of like, congratulations and congratulations. And I don't think I celebrated, but I think I did. I think I went to get dinner, but like it wasn't like a whole shebang.
I know that you've said in the past that you feel like you haven't been sure if you've broken through. I'm wondering if these Grammy nominations, your first two, make you feel like you have broken through, or if it changes that at all for you.
Yeah, I'd say everything I do is for pretty much representation. So obviously I'm from the UK. There is a lot of, UK influence in my music. So everything that I do is to kind of like represent where I'm from and what I stand for. It was very exciting for me to have seen like both my project and then something like Illegal, get nominated in such a like wide sense. And I'm not necessarily, I'm gassed for myself as an artist, but I think more than anything I'm just happy that like what my music stands for and the type of people that enjoy my music, like we can all celebrate together, because at the end of the day it is still an alternative genre, like it's dance, electronic, and yeah, I'm just happy that there's like representation in there.
I wonder if we could contextualize that within the other nominees. And let's start with dance electronic albums. So the other nominees are FKA Twigs, Skrillex, Rufus Du Sol, and Fred again.
Yeah.
What flavor are you bringing to this artist group?
Well, I definitely think everyone is a legend, so everyone from Twigs to Skrillex. For Gen Z, I think a lot of the time I hear that like I might be the gateway to a lot of Gen Z picking up on like dance or electronic music or two-step or garage or drum bass, and for me that like feels exciting, because I feel like, when I hear my name against these other people, I'm like honored, because these are people that I grew up listening to, especially someone like Fred again, who is also from the UK. It's like amazing that I can be alongside him, but I do feel like I do, as I said, represent a bit more of maybe like a Gen Z kind of fan base. Sure. I might represent maybe like more of the teen kind of space.
Totally. Do you feel like you're part of this guard of artists that are bringing two-step and drum and bass and kind of making them into the phenomenon that I feel they've become in the States in the last few years?
Yeah, I would like to put myself in that category. I think that, not even necessarily that I think that about myself, I just think that's what has been kind of said to me, and obviously I'm really happy to take that on. And there's a lot of other artists that I feel like have taken that on. I think Nia Archives is one, I think Kalala is one. It's just something I grew up with, so to me it's second nature to hear that kind of music in places like clubs and stuff, but I still think here there is a lot of places to still introduce it to.
I'm wondering now if we can go to the other category. Selena Gomez and Benny Blanco, Lady Gaga, Zara Larsson, Tate McRae. How do you feel about being in this group, and does it feel any different than the other categories?
I don't know if it feels too different. I think that it still feels like I'm amongst like real heavy hitters. So in that case, it's similar. It might be different because I think, this one might be more mainstream friendly. I think that I fit in more with the Fred Agains and the Twigs, because I think that I see myself in being more of a niche space. However, obviously, when you're against real big, huge pop stars, it feels like, oh wow, like I'm really like, it's cool that I can actually be in both. I think that that's a really big privilege, to be able to be alongside real amazing like pop artists and then also real like dance / electronic like legends like Skrillex. That just kind of like encompasses what I'm all about. I think I have one leg in each, and I'm happy to be that way.
You're going to the ceremony, I am assuming. What are you gonna wear? Who are you excited to see?
I have no idea what I'm gonna wear. However, hopefully I get to see all my girls. I like, it's rare that I get to really see like, like you'll meet an artist at a festival and be like, oh, like we got to meet up again soon, but then you don't really get to because of like scheduling. So hopefully I'll be able to see a lot of my friends, and yeah, I'm excited. I've never been to the Grammys, so I am excited, yeah.
You mentioned Zara Larsson, who, of course, you guys are having a moment right now with Stateside.
I've been touring stateside, kissing my Swedish boy over FaceTime.
Did you foresee that track in particular becoming such a hit?
Yes and no. I think I was actually like With the remix project, I was like, it was a real toss-up between, I guess with the remixes sometimes you never really know. I think some people will always be like, oh, you shouldn't have touched the originals, but then some people really enjoy change and interpretations. And I remember the Zara one was one that everyone just off the bat really loved. And it made me happy because I love recontextualizing all my music, and even before the project, me and her were messaging and stuff. I just knew that she would be perfect. And at first I wanted her to be on another song, but then I can't remember how it ended up being Stateside. I think I was like, wait, actually it would make more sense because you're Swedish. Or I think she ended up wanting to do Stateside, so yeah, we ended up doing it. And funnily enough, I was listening to the original version of Stateside with Zara, and it was, so obviously my original song has a different beat altogether. It's a bit more, it's less pop, bit more alternative, and so she actually had that, she was on the original beat. And I remember hearing it at the time and thinking like, it's cool, but I feel like I could find something that did her more justice. And so I had one of my favorite producers ever, Oscar Scheller. I remembered that we made a demo version and I was like, let me put her vocals on this instead. And then it just made so much more sense. It sounded so much more bubblegum and cute and like Bratz, and I just felt like it fit her world a bit more. I'm just happy to be kind of in some small capacity alongside her in this like cool way.
Well, it must be really satisfying because trusting your instincts and kind of really like breaking down these tracks and recontextualizing them. And I would love to hear more about that process. I find it fascinating when you kind of take something that you've already made that's very good, and then you make it into something completely different. And was that always the plan to turn Fancy that into Fancy some more?
I'd say, yeah, so my first ever project, To Hell With It, I made into a remix project. And that was my manager's idea. She's like she's really big on dance, and her brother's a DJ, and so they have a really strong connection with this kind of stuff. And I never thought about a remix project until she brought it up, the first project I ever did. And then with this project, I was like, it would be cool to do it again because I think I have more eyes, and so there'd be more potential artists that I really love being willing to be involved. A bunch of them, I just reproduced it to like make a new song with a different beat. Some of them I got from Oscar, who had already given me a lot of demos so I could play around. And then some of them I used the original beats, and yeah. And what I like about it is that it's almost just a whole new song. Right. So yeah, I kind of like the fact that it's like it has some attachment from the original project. Sure. So it's almost just like a whole new one. Right.
It really reminded me of the Brat remix project too. Of like these have similar DNA.
Yeah.
I think the crew of collaborators that you have in this project is so incredible as well. It's you know, Anitta and OK Lou and Zara, and like tell me about rounding up this like incredible collection of people.
Basically just artists that I've always wanted to work with, or that I'm friends with, or just like that basically I have a connection to each one. Yeah. So even someone like Anitta, like no one knows this, but we had the same PT for a little sec, and we did a PT. And it was the funniest thing ever. She's like actually really funny, and I just never forget meeting her. And it was such a random meeting, but I always remember having her in the back of my mind. Like she was such a personality. And then someone like 17, it's like I've been a fan of 17 since I was like 15. I was there for their debut. I was there since day one. I remember it so well. So every single artist I have a connection with is in some way, shape or form. And so getting them together, it just felt really natural. I didn't feel like there was anyone where I was like, oh, I'm not too sure about this. And it's really easy sometimes for labels to get involved and be like, oh no, we need to get this person for this reason, but literally I was like, you guys, I am figuring this out. Like, sure. I'm figuring this out. I'm doing this. And yeah, it ended up being super great.
Even though some of the collaborators are surprising, they still feel authentically you and part of your world and ecosystem.
Yeah.
Take me through some of just the big moments. I'm thinking of the Tiny Desk and obviously tour. Like, what have been your pinch me moments in all of this?
I'd say a few of my pinch me moments was going on Fallon.
PinkPantheress, everybody!
And then doing the pretty much all the things that you're probably, before this project, I didn't really do anything. I didn't do anything live really, and I didn't do anything that might put me in what I would consider a compromising position with like live vocals, and like, I guess this whole thing has been a bit of a pinchy moment, to be honest. I can name like a bunch of individual things, but I think there's not really one that stands out above everything. Each experience is so different and so unique and puts me through more challenges than the last.
I wanted to ask about that because, you know, obviously there's been this narrative of you being quite shy. Have you shuffled some of that shyness off to kind of do things so powerfully as you're doing?
You know, it's interesting. I think it depends on the day, because some days I wake up feeling really rambunctious and some days I just don't. I think I've managed to figure out at least how to control it on stage. I've done a lot of like research as to how I can help myself, and my biggest issue with being on stage was my heart would just beat really quick and I couldn't control basically any of my extremities. So I had to start taking something which would slow my heart down before I went on stage. So like things like that is just like, I used to do a lot of complaining about things that were outside of my control, and then I just realized actually the older I get, the more I can actually control a lot of things. And it doesn't need to be at the detriment of myself and other people. So it's, I think the older I get, the more I realize how in control I can be, and like I am the controller of my destiny to some extent. In some ways I'm not, but in some ways I am. And I think that, honestly, I think the best thing that's happened to me has been experience.
Well, it sounds like you're also just putting more tools in your toolbox. Like just like these tips and tricks where you can reach for that if you need that particular thing, and that's there for you too. And I know that you have a lot of dates this year. Take me through the next few months of your life and sort of how you're planning to launch yourself off into this big run.
Well, we have rehearsals coming up really soon, and that's going to happen, and then a lot of the shows are going to be completely different. Some of the shows are going to be more reminiscent of the tour I just did. I think it's going to be a lot of moving. More than anything, I have to figure out my fear of flying, which is probably the worst part of it for me. Is like I have a big fear of planes. So that's going to be probably the thing I'm most stressed about. I think the shows themselves, as I said, like I am in control of a lot of what I decide to do. So, for example, I'm doing a lot of shows in like 5K cap venues rather than like a 12K, which 12K for me is like, whoa, there's a lot of people right now. So me doing them in 6K, but like 2 nights of 6K makes me feel like so much more at ease. And also it's more intimate with my audience. A lot of reading, a lot of research. And a lot of like practice,
And reading, you mean like, are there books in particular, like
Reddit.
philosophies?
I just go on Reddit, honestly.
Okay, and read what feedback from your fan? Like, what are you reading?
So I'll just type in things like, what do you do to control your anxiety and stuff. And like there's just a lot of tips and tricks. And then, I don't do this too much, but like, sometimes I will see like what constructive criticism people have, it's fine. I don't really, I used to be really upset when I used to read anything bad, but I'm okay with, it's not being bullied, but like, if people are paying for a ticket, like, and they want to see certain things happening and they want to see something from me, then I'm at liberty to listen to what they're saying.
Sure, it's becoming maybe more of a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, that's how I feel, because at the end of the day, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for these people, actually, genuinely.
Sure, that seems like a really healthy way to think about it. And you can disregard what doesn't track for you, but you can take the stuff that works. Okay. Obviously, you've accomplished so much. How do you balance feeling satisfied with what you've done with, wanting more? I'm
just someone that always is obsessed with just, doing more, feeling like I haven't done enough, especially musically. Like, I always feel like, I could have made this thing better, I could have made this drum louder, But I think the more I kind of realize how lucky I am to still be a growing musician after 5 years, the more I am starting to feel satisfied. There was a point where I was like, 3 years in, I was like, oh God, anything could change for me. Like my next project could completely like fall underneath the radar.
Sure.
I'm still happy that I'm making music and I'm able to have a career, but it would disappoint me if, people started to lose interest in me as an artist. But I think after this project came out, Fancy That, I honestly feel like I feel so confident, and I feel like that's why I keep saying my fans, I'm so lucky to have them. They're really like loyal to me, and it's surprising because you get the sense that my generation for sure are super fickle and like, they only really latch on to certain trends. But I think that I'm very lucky enough to be an artist where like my fans have stayed really loyal to me, and I'm really happy, and that's given me a lot of confidence to kind of not feel like, I always have to, do flips and tricks for the next project. I need to completely change my sound. Like, they give me a lot of grace.
And it sounds like they love the essence of what you're doing. Like what you do works for them. They're not asking for anything else. Like, just stick to and that works.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking about the Basement Jaxx and Underworld samples on Fancy That. You have really all these modern artists, and obviously not all of them are electronic, but I'm wondering if you think that the remix project kind of more firmly places the project in like the modern electronic moment versus the throwbackiness of the original.
Yeah, I would say it depends who's listening, to be honest, because a lot of people that aren't aware of the samples, and I do my best to always make it very obvious that I am sampling what I'm sampling and who. But still a lot of people, especially overseas, who aren't maybe as familiar with the Britishness of the samples, they might think that, I think to them it is a completely modern thing. I see a lot of debates where it's like, she's really reinventing the wheel, or some people might say that, and then some people will reply and be like, well, she's actually not, like, she's actually really just like interpolating and repurposing a lot of music that you might not have heard, and I think both opinions are true.
Well, and I love too, like you also mentioned just the Britishness.
Yes.
And to reach back to those two artists in particular is so like melding all of the genres of British electronic music in such an elegant way.
Yeah, exactly. I do. Yeah, exactly.
Have you heard from either of those two acts at all?
Of course. Well, Underworld did a remix, and then Basement Jackson. I've met them a few times. They are so funny. Their like dynamic is super interesting. Like Felix, there's a member. So it's Felix and Simon is this very like, they're both extremely talented, and you can tell like. You can just tell they work in such an interesting way. Like one of them is extremely calm and one of them is insane. And I love the dynamic. I think they're both super fun and interesting people. And just watching their process as a producer for me was just insane.
I mean, I have to ask, obviously we mentioned the tour, you have a lot coming up. Are you working on anything else right now?
No.
Okay.
I'm not. But I think when I do, it will be super obvious. I always I try and let my fans know when I'm like on my shit again.
Okay, so it won't be a secret.
No, it won't be a secret. I'll give people a little hint when I started, but it definitely is not quite yet.
Okay.
I feel like I'm definitely still in this era, like quite embedded in it.
Absolutely.
Still.
Full on. Is there anything else you want to say?
No.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.